Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how to handle exceptions in Java. Let me answer. The simple and straightforward answer for this question is, in Java, if you want to handle the exceptions, you have to use try-catch blocks. Okay? Using try-catch blocks, we can handle the exception or exceptions in Java. I'm going to practically demonstrate this for you. Before that, you need to understand what exactly is an exception is. Exception is nothing but a runtime error. When you run the program, if you are not getting any compiler error in the code, but if you run the code while the code is running, if you are getting some error in the output, such errors are called as runtime errors, which you can also call them as exceptions or exception. Okay. So exception is nothing but a runtime error which occurs while the program is getting executed. Okay. So such kind of errors or exceptions are called as runtime errors or exceptions. Okay. So what is the problem with the exception? What will happen if such kind of runtime error or exception occurs while you're running the code? The problem with exceptions is, or the runtime errors is, okay, in what line that particular exception or runtime error occurred, that line itself, the program execution will stop. Okay, the program execution will not continue. The program execution will stop at the line where that particular exception or runtime error comes. Okay. So, and remaining lines followed by that particular line giving the exception won't be executed. Okay. Program execution will stop at the line where the exception is occurred in Java programs, and remaining lines after that line won't be executed, guys. Okay. After that line giving the exception, that remaining lines won't be executed. So if you want to continue executing the remaining lines of code despite of getting an exception in some XYZ line, okay, then we have to handle the exceptions in Java. Why we have to handle the exception? To continue the program execution despite of getting the runtime errors. Okay. So how to handle the exceptions? We have to use try-catch blocks. Okay. So we have to use try-catch blocks using which we can handle the exception and we can make sure that the program execution will not stop and will continue the executing the remaining lines of the code. Okay, let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to the Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just create a new class. I'll just name this class as 8 with main method. Okay. So what happens here is I'm going to create some logic which is going to give you some exception while the program is getting executed. That is int a is equal to 10, int b is equal to 0, int c is equal to a divided by b. I'm dividing the number 10 by 0. I'm going to print the value of a. I'm going to print the value of b. I'm going to print the value of c. I'm going to print end of this program here. End of this program also here. Okay. Now run the code. Okay. I have run the code. Observe that we got an exception at the line 9. Okay. Why we got an exception at the line 9? Because you're trying to divide a number by 0, which is not possible in Java. You are not getting any compiler error, but when you run this code, while the program is getting executed in the output, you got an error or exception, runtime error or exception known as arithmetic exception. And the reason is you're trying to divide the number by 0. Okay. So what happens after line 9 is the program execution will stop at the line 9 where the exception occurred, and remaining lines like 10, 11, 12, 13, etc. won't be executed. Okay. This is a problem with the exceptions. Okay. This is a problem with the exceptions. To overcome this problem, to continue the execution of the code despite of getting the exception at this particular line, we have to handle the exception, okay, that comes during the runtime. So to handle that exception, I'll surround this statement with try-catch blocks. Try-catch. You can give arithmetic exception E. And here, I have to handle the exception, guys. I have to handle the exception. So there are different ways of handling the exception. You see, first of all, this variable C, I have to make it global, guys. Okay, in C, I have to say int C is equal to 0. I have to make. Okay, Otherwise, if you simply say int c and assign this here, still you'll get an error to initialize. Okay, you have to initialize. I'll initialize this with some value like 0. Okay. Now here, if exception comes, I'll simply say I'll print out this exception details. Okay. To handle the exception, I'll print out the exception details. I'll just simply print e. Okay. So what happens here is you're trying to divide a number by 0 instead of instead of throwing that exception to the output like this and stopping the program from execution. What happens here is the exception will be handled by this try catch blocks. Try block will throw the exception, and catch blocks will catch that particular exception. And once the catch blocks catch that particular exception thrown by the try block code, okay, it will handle the exception with the code that we have written inside the catch block. Okay, what it's going to do in this case is it's going to print the exception details. That's it. But it's not going to stop the execution of the code. So remaining code will be continuing execution, guys. Okay, remaining code will continue to run. So run the code this time. You see the exception will be handled, and with the help of try catch block, we will be able to handle the exception, and remaining statements will run. You see 10:00 end of this program got printed. So despite of getting an exception here, the program is not halted or stopped. Rather, we have continued the execution by handling the exception with the help of try catch blocks. So hope guys, you got an idea how to handle the exceptions in Java. Using try catch blocks, we have to handle the exceptions in Java with practical demonstration. I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.